In 1984, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird created a comic book that spawned one of the biggest multimedia franchises of all time. But if you want to read those original comics, what's the best way to do it?
It's Morphin' Time!
Hello, this is Soundout here, and on today's video, we're going to be talking about the original Mirage Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comic book. I just did a reread of the original series, and I thought, what better time than to talk about these comics, because a lot of people have asked the question over the time, which edition to get? Ultimate Collection, Compendium? Does these contain everything? How much double dipping do you have to do? And I thought, let's simplify it and see if I can figure out the correct answer. Of course, the correct answer is going to be up to personal preference, but I want to give you all the information I can in this video to not only read these comics in the original proper intended order, but also to collect them for yourself. So that's what we're going to be doing here today. If you like videos like this, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. Also, be sure to hit the hype button if it's available to you on mobile. Let's get to it, because there's a lot to talk about with the Mirage comics. And yes, I will be going over the original Mirage series, but also the later Mirage comics, because I feel like let's do an all-in-one type video here. So let's talk reading order first, because some of these collections are a little bit different on how they do things. And I want to talk about why that is. So first of all, Volume 1 is everything from 1984 to 1993, the main 62-issue Mirage comic series, and also all of the one-shots and mini-series and spin-offs in that. So I've kind of put it all together based on how they've been officially mapped. There's some consistency over the years. So issue 1, which was published in 1984, was printed in a garage. It was Eastman and Laird's garage, and that's kind of what started everything. But that first issue was kind of a one-shot, but then the series continued from there. So then you want to read issues 2 and 3, following up with the micro-series Raphael one-shot, because they would start doing one-shots for each turtle, and the Raphael one takes place between 3 and 4. Then you have issue 4, then you have the Fugitoid one-shot, which was a collection of stories about the character Fugitoid. Then issue 5 through 7, the Michelangelo one-shot. Issue 8, which isn't always included, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Donatello, issue 9, Leonardo, issue 10 and 11. Then we have Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which was a separate series that started in 1987, and it would have different creators working on it than Eastman and Laird, and Tales would introduce some characters that would later show up in the main series, so I think it's pretty essential. So we want to read Tales issues 1 to 2. Then you have issue 12, Tales 3 and 4, issue 13 and 14, Tales 5, issue 15, Tales 6, issue 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21, and then Tales 7. Then everything's pretty straightforward from here, because you got issues 22 all the way through 62. Now, here's the thing about a lot of these issues. They're not all considered canon, because during the time when the franchise was heating up, Eastman and Laird could not keep working on the comic book, and so they passed it to other creators. So there's a bunch of issues that are credited as the guest era, and those were done by other creators like Mark Martin or Rick Veek or A.C. Farley. And so those are still issues, and they still are stories, but they're not necessarily considered canon by Eastman and Laird, and they're not considered like the main canon, but they are still numbered issues of the series. So when we go looking at how things are collected, we will then talk about why certain issues aren't in certain editions. Now, Mirage did not end their publishing in Ninja Turtles there. In 1993, there was the second volume, Volume 2, which lasted 13 issues with Jim Lawson as the writer and artist. This running from November 1993 to January 1996. All 13 issues of the series were done by him, and it's doing an epilogue to the end of the original Mirage comic. There also was a new miniseries that got started at Mirage that finished getting published at Image called Casey Jones and Raphael Body Count, which is a very graphic, mature title. That was 4 issues. Ninja Turtles and Flaming Carrot had a 4-issue crossover in 1993. There was a 2-issue series called Casey Jones, which was the story North by Down East, which came out in 1994. And then Savage Dragon had a crossover with Ninja Turtles, and Ninja Turtles had a crossover with Savage Dragon. Now, Volume 3 was continuing from where Volume 2 left off. It was published by Image instead of Mirage. This lasted 23 issues from 1996 to 1999. Now, the series wasn't finished, and in the late 2010s, IDW went and reprinted all 23 issues, as well as providing 24 through 26, making a full Urban Legends series of 26 issues for Volume 3. Now, there would be a Volume 4 for Mirage that would negate the Image Volume 3 from canon, so it's there, it exists, but it doesn't exist in canon anymore. So Volume 4 was published from 2002 to 2014 as 32 issues. IDW is doing their first reprint of this as single issues and trade volumes of TMNT Journeys, is that series. There also was 70 issues of Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from 2004 to 2010. There was also 4 miniseries of 4 issues each: Tales of Leonardo Blind Sight, Raphael Bad Moon Rising, Michelangelo the Third Kind, and Donatello the Brain Thief. Now, I couldn't find a definitive reading order for all of this, and a lot of this has never been reprinted before, and the TMNT Journeys IDW is doing is one of the first long-form reprints, but we don't know how far and extensive it will be at this time. So that's the reading order. It's honestly pretty straightforward, all things considered, for everything, especially the original Volume 1 is going to be the most intersplicing of issues, but overall it is pretty straightforward, and luckily a lot of its collections are very good at keeping everything consistent. But let's talk about how these are collected in trade paperback and hardcover form. Something to know about the original Mirage comics is that they initially were published in black and white, and for a lot of people they prefer the black and white format. I am one of them. There are options to have color editions though, the most recent of which was called Color Classics. And when I go through where things are collected, I'm going to go with the most recent collection, but I will always include the compendiums and the ultimate collections. And then I will explain the difference between these in a minute. But the way I'm going to do this is because of the nature of the original Mirage comic having a lot of creators involved, not every issue is collected in every format. The Ultimate Collection is kind of a let's get to the point, whereas the Compendium is kind of a everything, but there's still stuff missing in both. The reason why is because all of the guest artists and writers that came into work on Mirage Ninja Turtles own the rights to their issues, so they need to be contacted and give permission for their work to be reprinted, as well as, I imagine, monetary compensation, as it should be. So because of that, there are some issues missing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go issue by issue, sort of, to break down where things are available. And the formats I'm going to focus on are the Ultimate Collection, the Compendium, and the Color Classics for those that want these in color, which they didn't do every issue in color, I'll tell you that off the bat. So issues 1, 2, 3, the Raphael one-shot, and issue 4 are in Compendium 1, Ultimate Collection 1, and Color Classics Volume 1. The Fugitoid one-shot is in Compendium 1. Issues 5, 6, and 7 are in Compendium 1, Ultimate Collection 1, and Color Classics Volume 1. The Michelangelo one-shot is in Compendium 1, Ultimate Collection 2, and Color Classics Volume 1. Issue number 8 is in Ultimate Collection Volume 2 and Color Classics Volume 2. It didn't make it to the compendiums because issue 2 features the Dave Sim character Cerebus, and due to rights issues with Dave Sim as well as issues in his own personal life, that issue was not reprinted in the most modern collection, being the compendium. So issue 8, you're going to have to go to the Ultimate Collection for the black and white, or Color Classics Volume 2 for the color. The Donatello, issue 9, Leonardo, issue 10, and issue 11 are in Ultimate Collection Volume 2, Compendium 1, and Color Classics Volume 2. Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles issues 1 and 2 are in the IDW Compendium 1. They were also in older paperbacks, but those are so long out of print, I don't feel like it's worth telling you about them. Issue 12 was in Compendium 1, Ultimate Collection 3, and Color Classics Volume 2. Tales 3 and 4 are in Compendium 1. Issue 13 is in Compendium 1 and Color Classics Volume 2. Issue 14 is in Compendium 1, Ultimate Collection 3, and Color Classics Volume 3. Tales 5 is in Compendium 1. Issue 15 is in Compendium 2, Ultimate Collection 3, and Color Classics Volume 3. Tales 6 is in Compendium 2. Issue 16, done by Mark Martin, is in Compendium 2 and Color Classics 3. Issue 17 is in Compendium 2, Ultimate Collection 3, and Color Classics 3. Issue 18, done by Mark Bode, was in Compendium 2 and Color Classics 3. Issues 19, 20, and 21, the Return to New York arc, is in Compendium 2, Ultimate Collection 3, and Color Classics Volume 3. Tales Issue 7 is in Compendium 2. Issues 22 and 23 by Mark Martin are in Compendium 2. Issues 24, 25, and 26 by Rick Veik. The River Trilogy has not been collected in a modern collection by IDW. The last time they were reprinted was Mirage's Collected Book 6 in 1991. They have not been able to clear the rights with Rick Veik. Whatever deal hasn't worked out. So those 3 issues are not in any collection. Issues 27, 28, and 29 are in Compendium 2. Issue 30, which was also done by Rick Veik, is not in any collection and never was in any collection. The only way to read it is in the original single. Issues 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, and 36 are only in Compendium 2, and those are all guest era issues by different artists. Issues 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, and 47, all guest era issues, they're in Compendium 3. Issues 48 and 49, Shades of Grey, and issues 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, The Beginning of City at War, are in Compendium 3, Ultimate Collection 4, and in color, they were only in the old Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles The Works hardcover Volume 4. Issue 56 is in Compendium 3, Ultimate Collection 4, and The Works Volume 5. Issues 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, and 62, Finishing City at War, finishing the series as a whole, are in Compendium 3, Ultimate Collection 5, and in color in The Works Volume 5. The Ultimate Collection has 2 more volumes. Volume 6, which is collecting a bunch of short stories that Eastman and Laird worked on from different various one-shots and other collaborations, and Volume 7, which features artwork that the pair have done on different projects that weren't part of the main series. For Volume 2 of the Mirage series, all 13 issues are available in the Mirage years 1983 to 1995 hardcover, which is the same size as the Compendiums. The Casey Jones and Raphael Body Count miniseries was collected in a hardcover by Heavy Metal in 2018. All 26 issues of Volume 3, the Image series, published as Urban Legends, were released across 2 trade paperbacks in 2019 and 2021. And for Volume 4, currently the only things being reprinted are individual issues as TMNT Journeys, which will then get trade paperback collections, which hopefully will cover all the issues from Volume 4. Now, that being said, the first 24 issues of Tales of the TMNT Volume 2 were collected as part of the old Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles paperbacks Volumes 3 through 8, but that was only 24 of the 70 issues, so there's no complete collection out there, and those are long out of print. So, what format should you get? Well, if you're somebody that wants these in color and you're fine missing a bunch of issues, they did cover the early part of the series, as well as up to Return to New York, and then they just skipped over all the guest area issues and they got to City at War, but only if you got the old hardcovers and the recent paperbacks. They have not kept the color stuff in print very well. It is hard to track down. It is not complete, but if you're somebody that really wants the issues in color, I wish you the best of luck, Godspeed, and let eBay be on your side. Let's move to the black and white editions, because for all intents and purposes, there's 2 versions that are available roughly consistently. IDW does have a good track record of keeping stuff in print for what they would consider the main version of the series. These compendiums, they sell out sometimes and they come back in stock. The Ultimate Collections, they sell out sometimes and come back in stock for the paperbacks. We'll talk about that in a moment. They keep the IDW collections in print. So sometimes it may be that there's certain volumes out of print, but hopefully they will return to print. This video I want to stay a little evergreen, so I'm not going to talk about current print status. But let's talk about the 2 main editions of the original Mirage comic. Because obviously, as we talked about, volumes 2 through 4, you don't have many options there. You just kind of take what you can get. But in terms of Ultimate Collection versus Compendium, which one's the best for you? Well, it does depend on what type of reader you are, but let's talk about the overall format. So the Ultimate Collections originally started as large oversized hardcovers, with the first one releasing in 2011, and then later paperback editions were released in 2017. And they've released all 7 volumes in hardcover and paperback. And I went for the paperbacks, as you can see, which ultimately kind of worked for me in the long run. Now, the Ultimate Collections do not contain every issue of the series. Like we went over, you saw that the Ultimate Collections would pop in and out. I think the idea behind these is it's supposed to be the core story, the main issues, and has a heavy focus on Eastman and Laird's work specifically. And part of that reason is because at the back of every issue in these books, at the end of every story, you finish finish issue 1, you get comments from Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird talking about working on the series, some behind the scenes info, thoughts on the issues as they worked on them. And so issues where Eastman worked on it, but Laird didn't, and issues where Laird worked on it and Eastman didn't, you have some different comments from them, which I think is great. They even have specific page call-outs. I love insight like that. That is one of my favorite things about the Ultimate Collections. And the main story is covered in the first 5. Volume 6 is a collection of short stories that aren't really reprinted anywhere else, and so that's very valuable for completionists, but not necessarily needed for everybody. And Volume 7 is essentially an art book of additional material that we hadn't seen. There's no actual stories in that one. So for me, I'd say if you're trying to get the core story only, those 5 volumes will get you all the major beats. It'll give you all the original stories, it'll give you all the one-shots, and it will also have, of course, Return to New York and City at War, the most famous of the storylines. So this is kind of like the core story experience. Whereas the compendiums are going for a more complete experience. These are the same size as like Marvel omnibuses or DC omnibuses. They got fun dust jackets. There's currently only paper or hardcover editions. There's no paperback editions of these. They run a bit of a higher price point. You see one paperback here is going to run $30 for what is 8 issues of Mirage, which these have pretty long page counts. A lot of these issues are about 30 to 40 pages. And then here you have the first, you have 13 issues, the 5 one-shots, plus the first 5 issues of Tales for $150. And part of the reason why the price is higher on the compendiums is not just the size and the format and the page count, because these are, you know, about 800 pages a piece, but because they do have to pay a lot of creators on these, not just Eastman and Laird, but all these other people who wrote fill-in issues and other type stories. But these have a more complete experience, as you can see, because it doesn't just include what Eastman and Laird worked on, it includes everything. It also includes the Fugitoid one-shot, which Eastman and Laird did work on, and sets up future stories, which is one of the things that kind of turned me on to reading or getting the compendiums. There's also the Tales issues. The Tales issues weren't done by Eastman and Laird, but they introduced important characters, like Rat King debuts in a Tales issue, and then later on he is a major player in City at War, and you see in City at War the aftermath of the events in Tales issue 4, for example. So for me, I say, you know, I do really like the compendiums, but like I also talked about, and you saw the compendiums vanish a couple times, they're not complete either. First of all, it's missing issue 8. And issue 8, at least, was reprinted in Ultimate Collection Volume 2, which is right here. And that's kind of an important issue for debuting Renat and Savanti Romero, who come back several times in other issues. Not in the main issues, but in the some of the guest era issues. But this is included here. And the rights issues with Dave Sims' work with Cerebus is the reason why it's only in the older edition and not the newer ones. But in theory, if you wanted to, you could just get an Ultimate Collection Volume 2 paperback to have that issue, and you're covered otherwise with all the other comics. And then, you know, if you wanted the short stories, Volume 6 is there as well. That's an option. For me, the thing I do miss in these is there's no bonus material. You don't get any of the Eastman and Laird comments. So I'm also glad to have this as well. But not everybody's going to want to double dip like this, especially with the price of these books. Luckily, these go on sale quite frequently. I got mine for about $60 a piece instead of $150 a piece, which I think is, you know, a much better price point. But mileage may vary on the pricing. The other question that people have is, outside of the Tales issues, are these worth reading? Well, here's the thing. The best stuff is the Eastman and Laird core story and the issues by Jim Lawson. The stuff that Jim Lawson did in Tales, introduced Leatherhead, introduced Rat King, introduced Nobody. I appreciate those issues a whole lot, and I'm glad to have finally read them. But then you get into the guest era issues, especially here, between Return to New York and City at War, and it's a mixed bag. There's some really cool issues in there, but there's also some real stinkers. It's up and down, but I will say, part of the fun is that you don't know what you're going to get. It's a bit of a grab bag. You're not sure if it's going to be great. You're not sure if it's going to be terrible. You get to kind of experience it as you go along. So there is something to be said about that. There is also something to be said that despite all of this, even if you have both editions, you're still going to be missing the 4 issues by Rick Veik. And those 4 issues, you know, I read them other places. The River Trilogy is great. I thought the 24 through 26 is awesome. I thought 30 was kind of crap. So, you know, it's not too bad. They do reference the river in one of the guest era issues, does reference the river story. But, you know, they're not super necessary because they are also rendered non-canon. But it is kind of a bummer that we do have these 3 awesome bricks with everything but those 4 issues. And maybe some point Rick Veik will be willing to, you know, have them reprinted, and we could get like maybe a standalone hardcover to put alongside these. But at the current time, those 4 issues are missing. But this has everything else. It's missing 5 issues in total, number 8, which is in volume 2, and then 24 through 26 and 30. It's not going to disrupt your reading experience, but I do feel like the reading experience is more complete over here because of Fugitoid, because of the Tales series, and because of some of those extra issues that Eastman and Laird didn't do that have characters that show up in City at War, which is an Eastman and Laird story. They were looking at what else was done in the comics and tried to tie it all together for the finale. So, in my opinion, if you want just the core story, you can just go for volumes 1 to 5 and just not worry about the introductions of some other characters. But if you want a more complete experience, I think the compendiums are a nice way to go. Just depends on what kind of reader you are and what you want. Like, for example, I didn't have the Volume 2 hardcover, even though it kind of matches the compendiums, because I think issue 62's finale is so perfect, I don't ever want to read anything further. But let me know in the comments if I really need to read Volume 2, because it's amazing, because, you know, Jim Lawson's stuff in this is really good. But I just found the finale to be so perfect that I don't really want a continuation, if that makes sense. So yeah, we all have different feelings and different vibes on this, but I hope I cleared up a little confusion in some way. So that was my hopefully comprehensive guide to the Mirage Comics Ninja Turtles. If you never read this original run, I do highly recommend it. It's really incredible stuff, and it's so interesting to see how the franchise would evolve and adapt things from this specifically. It's really cool to kind of go back through and look through the history of the Turtles through the original creation that it was in just a standalone comic book before it became all this other stuff later. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and subscribe to the notification bell if you haven't already. Hit that hype button if it's available to you. Also leave any comments, questions, concerns down below. If you want to continue the conversation, you can join our Discord server in the link below. You can also join as a channel member and get perks like early access to videos plus special shoutouts. Let's give some special shoutouts to some of our channel members. Special shout out to all of our channel members, including Shinji, Willis Thana, Mr. Mayhem, Yue the Guardian, Jamie Harper, Geets, That Guy Nobody Wants, Matcha's Dent, Marry Me Senpai, and Studio Lunar Productions. Thank you all for your support, viewers and channel members alike. If you so wish, I'm on social media on Blue Sky and Letterboxd at Soundout12. You'll also find my wonderful graphic designer on social media and Discord at DarkClaw643, and you can find Hero Club at heroesclub.com for comic reviews and more. And until next time, this is Soundout saying, they didn't say cowabunga, they didn't say turtle time, go fight Shredder. I don't have a catchphrase in this version.